What I find so fascinating about China is the fact that it has, for some years now, been a top priority for our intelligence community. It is a focus because of its economic prowess, the growing capabilities technologically, and the desire to shift the global order. And yet, there's still so much that remains mysterious. We can go back to 2019, 2020, and how much did China know of the pandemic that it decided to clamp down on? How much does it know about Havana syndrome? Is it involved in any capacity as we think about what really this could be? But right now, let me just think about this in the lens of what's happened since January. Recall, Delta Force seized Nicolas Maduro. Also, we know that there are as many as, or at least, four Chinese spy bases in Cuba. These are signals intelligence, and there's some really, really great analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies about the capabilities of these bases, from antennas to intercept satellite communications to high frequency radio transmission capabilities, underground facilities, solar panels in case of blackouts. So, in my view, when you have this base right off of the coast of the United States, so close by, when you have all of these different facilities, as well as people working inside the United States, also in other countries, did China miss the US plans to capture Maduro? Are those bases not really as good as they could be or as we think that they could be? A former intelligence officer and Chinese expert, Nick Eftimiades, tells me that he sees this as being a major Chinese intelligence failure. Because let's also remember that the Chinese have been doing business with Venezuela, not just talking oil, we're talking telecommunications. It really runs the gamut here. They have a lot to lose when it comes to Venezuela. And Nick says that the Chinese would have informed Maduro if there had been plans to capture Maduro that they had picked up on. Now, he said that it's possible that the Chinese had picked up on naval movements, but, quote, maybe they thought it was popping another go fast boat, meaning the numerous bombings of alleged drug boats that we saw off the coast of Venezuela and in the Caribbean. A quote, no one figured out, wait a minute, this isn't normal. They didn't see this as anything that showed intentions to remove Maduro. By the way, neither did the Russians. The Russians also have a Soviet-era spy base that they revived in Cuba called Lourdes. They didn't figure it out either. Now, another former intel officer speaking on the condition of anonymity wondered if the Chinese had really focused their priorities elsewhere. That when you're working in intelligence, some of these capabilities, especially when it comes to SIGINT, it shifts over time to different locations. But, quote, you'd think the buildup of ships, that's an indicator that would heighten the Chinese interest. This person said, maybe they saw something, chose not to alert Maduro. Now, we have also been seeing activity in Beijing that has raised a lot of questions and discussions, and there are varying viewpoints here on Xi Jinping's purge of officials. We have now reached the highest level, China's top general under investigation, ousted. This is Zhang Youxia. He was previously considered a real ally for Xi. I have Substack colleagues over at Spy Talk who I think got it right when they said that China's claims that he had been divulging nuclear secrets to the United States was probably disinformation meant to isolate this person who presented an alternative to Xi, a person who held a lot of support, influence, and power. She has been on an anti-corruption tear for years. He rightfully sees that corruption would weaken his own country. Look at the way the Russians have been weakened in their military display in Ukraine and their intelligence capabilities in how long it would take to seize Kyiv, she understands that corruption certainly plays a role into what's being done, what's being said. But what we're seeing with this top general might not necessarily fit into this. An analyst, a K. Tristan Tang from the Jamestown Foundation, had some really interesting analysis about how Zhang and Xi disagreed on something very important: when China would be capable of potentially invading Taiwan. Now, we know that Xi has talked about 2027. That's when the Chinese will be capable. This is what we're aspiring to. But Zhang apparently said that it would be by 2035. This analyst said the purge happened now because January of this year was the start of the final annual training cycle before this big year of 2027. So these differences in priorities will be magnified, and this presents a real threat to Xi's authority. Now, in the past, years before this, she had relied on the combat experience of Zhang to push forward the new military training system that he has in mind for the readiness to go into Taiwan. And 2026 was supposed to be the year to finalize the joint training. Quote, Xi's preference has been to pursue speed and scale, while Zhang favored a more focused and deliberate approach. Also, Zhang saw, quote, networked information systems and unmanned intelligent warfare as urgent priorities. This is all pretty interesting to me. What this analyst believes is that the successors for not only Zhang, but others who have been removed, will be ones who give Xi what he wants. Quote, under intense pressure, these successors may accelerate the pace of joint operations training and push forward joint drills or even exercises in a more rushed manner. But it seems pretty clear that when you're rushing this way, it doesn't lead to success. There's a lot of analysis around the fact that 2027 is probably not when the country, the PLA, will be ready to move into Taiwan. Oh my God. I don't know what that was, but I just heard something super loud go off in my place. Incidentally, it's at this skylight, which has, if you've been following me for a while, led to a lot of craziness in my life. That's a story for another day. But analysts have all kind of, well, I guess it's not the best way to characterize it. Many analysts have described how 2027 is not a likely period for when the country would have the capability of invading Taiwan, but that what we could be seeing is the fact that there's an increased risk for miscalculation when these more established generals are no longer in positions of power and influence. What's also interesting to note is that on January 15th, 9 days before this announcement about Zhang, and I'm not trying to say that these two were related, but the CIA put out this new slick video in Mandarin with very beautiful images of people sitting at computers, walking through markets, in office spaces with huge windows, on their phones, at cars, great music, trying to recruit from inside China. They say, quote, the CIA wants to know the truth about China, and we're looking for trustworthy individuals who know and can share that truth. The information you possess may be more valuable than you think. This is not the first video that the CIA has put out to directly recruit Chinese nationals. They also put one out in May. That one had about 20 million views when I looked at it today. This new one, out since January 15th, has 41 million views. I also know that the CIA put out a similarly slick video to recruit Russians inside Russia when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. So they clearly see this as being an effective tactic. And it's just so interesting to note, though, how much competing analysis there is on why Xi Jinping is doing what he's doing. And it shows how little we really understand of this country, a country that we have considered to be our greatest adversary for many years. So I am hoping to come back to you tomorrow with a very different kind of report, but I'm going to leave it here for now. Thank you all for joining me, and I would love to read more of your notes, but I was talking, so I couldn't see them. I'll talk to you again soon.